Hello everybody, in this episode I'll explain to you what game I'm making and we will see the code I've made for it. What I'm actually making in this series? Well, the game I'm currently working on is based on one of the stories I told you about from the last video, that I have adapted to being played by a single character instead of a complete party. Basically, I wanted to go for something a little bit different than the usual RPG. I decided that I wanted to have a different playstyle for the fights. In fact, in this game you don't have a sword that you swing around or a tome of spells, but you actually are going to use only emotions to manipulate your opponent until the point where they break down and your character will get away with whatever you need at the moment. You see, you are not actually playing the usual hero. Instead, you are an old man who couldn't survive a single punch, who for some reason, no spoilers for now, has been trapped in a pact where, in exchange for a wish, now he must complete quests for his patron. Speaking of patrons, I remind you of my Patreon where you can give me a hand even by subscribing without paying any commissions. Link in the description. Back to the story. Your quest is to cure the lord of a small village who's sick from a strange illness. All the game will go around the theme of getting information from the people of the village to understand how the lord got sick and maybe who afflicted him with the illness. We will go in further details on the story in the future, but for now this is a devlog, so let's see where we are with the game. For now I've been concentrating on the fight system, and this is how the tutorial presents itself. We have the main setting of the scene with this abomination that we will pretend is a thief. On the bottom we have all the actions that we can take, which are all emotions that we can use to manipulate the thief. Of course, not every emotion is accurate for each round of the fight, so by looking at the thief, reading what he's saying to us and looking at how the fight went until that moment by checking the text log here, we need to decide which emotion will make this clock advance until it's full. The clock here is the meter that shows how the fight is going. When it's full, it means that the opponent is completely broke and we win the fight. If it gets empty, we lose and we are going to face the consequences. We also have this orb that represents a magic item our character has, which will show the current emotion of our opponent. Keep in mind that the orb has limited usages, so we will use it only when we are not certain of what is going on. Anyway, the orb will not tell us which emotion to use, but only what the opponent is feeling in the current round. Each round we make a choice, the clock changes and the thief reacts to what we have said. After that, all the lines of the emotions change to accommodate the reaction. Now, each emotion has a different line for each turn, so that brings us to our code for this fight. Good. Now relax, take some water, and let's look at it. This wall of lines represents all the combinations we can have by taking the path of each emotion. Basically, what we have here is a tree situation. The emotions we have are 8, so for each of them, after we pick one, we will have 8 more different choices, and so on for how many rounds the fight will last. This means that for the first round we have 8 possibilities, for the second round we will have 8 times 8 more, and for the third round we'll have 8 more for each of those 64 choices of the second round. That's why the code looks like this. Keep in mind that I'm not a good programmer yet, so I'm sure the code is longer than it could be. The same friend that made me start this journey with Godot told me that there's a cleaner way to organize the code for the fights using a branch tree and signals that call from another file where only text is stored. But for now, I was fixed on making the fight work, so I'm happy with this nightmare here. Actually, before cleaning it a bit, the code was even longer, like almost 4,000 lines long. To break down what is happening inside of it, let's take a look at one turn of an emotion. This is the function for when an emotion is pressed. Before pressing it, you can see what your character will say if you use that emotion. So, for the first thing, the function disables all the hovering on buttons functions, so that if you cross other buttons during the function, nothing happens. And it does it in a straightforward way, by turning down the boolean variables that allow the hovering. After that, the function checks in which turn we are currently in. Then we create a tween for showing the text with this typewriter effect. We do that by setting the visible characters to 0 and then raising the variable until the complete length of the phrase. After that, there's a timer to allow you to read what's happening. Here we have another function that checks how the clock changes and by how much. Inside of it, there's also stored a little shake effect that we make by using another tween. After that, the sprite of the clock changes to match the amount. Then we do the same thing to show the reaction of the enemy, and we also store the variable of the enemy text to be able to show it when we hover off the emotions buttons in the next round. Next, we change the variable for the turn by making it advance, and after that we have another function that simply changes the appearance of the opponent by checking their current emotion. We use this function also to store a variable for the current emotion of the enemy so that the orb could show it if used. At the end, we restore the variables and that's it. For the turns where it is impossible to finish the fight, I skipped another function that just checks if the clock is empty or full, in which case shows an ending message for the fight before bringing you back to the main game scene. Alright, we survived this explanation. Good job to us. Let's take a break by taking a long breath and by subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. I hope it was clear enough, and let me know in the comments if you would like me to explain something a little bit better. So, this is all for this first episode of the devlog. Tell me if you like the idea of the game, and any suggestions on the code or in the game in general to make it more interesting are highly appreciated. As always, if you want to support me, there is my Patreon in the description, where you can also try my first game in early access. Thank you for the attention, and see you later.